Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
Art Pod is a South African-focused visual arts podcast hosted by Claude Chandler. Join me weekly every Saturday as I'm joined by a new guest who occupies a position within the visual arts community, ranging from fine arts, tattooing, framing, and logistics. Welcome to another episode of Art Pod. Today I'm joined by the award-winning multidisciplined artist Kate Arthur. Welcome to the show.
Thanks,
Welcome to my podcast. I think, one of your biggest accolades was being the winner for the SPI 2017 Sanlam Portrait Award, which we will get into. I think we met for the first time in person at the Joburg Art Fair.
Yes, I think it was.
And the difference between the Joburg and the Cape Town art scene, what do you kind of get from that?
Well, I never was actually practicing art when I lived in Joburg. And I was working in the arts industry that side. And I have found the two quite different, so I moved to Cape Town to pursue my own practice. But I found it quite difficult to enter or access the scene here. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Joburg, I found that there was much more willingness and openness to help, and people would get involved and get you involved. Whereas in Cape Town, I felt like I was here for 3 years before I kind of made connections and made relationships with people in the industry.
I could say I have a similar experience. When I was doing a bit of research on you, I see you studied at Rhodes.
Yes.
And you grew up in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah, that's
but
correct.
Born in KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes.
Interesting. And the Rhodes art university life, was that an enjoyable experience?
Yeah, it was a great time of my life. I loved being a student. I was really, really excited about what I was studying. The fine art department there, certainly at the time, was very conceptually weighted, which was something that I hadn't experienced before, at school, and I really threw myself into learning as much as I could. I think for the first 2 years, I didn't miss a single lecture because I couldn't get enough of it.
Amazing. I kind of had the opposite experience where I felt betrayed by my art institution.
I felt betrayal later, but the beginning started off well.
And coming, normally third year, fourth year, there's a big emphasis on a body of work. What did you focus on in that final?
Portraiture.
Portraiture.
Funnily enough, yeah, it was portraiture.
It was the same here. Was there, for me, there was a certain pressure. I felt that the work had to be quite loaded and heavy, and I had to kind of realign the planets almost with my art message. And I didn't feel I kind of had that in me yet, or I wasn't sure how to do that. And for me, portraiture was something I kind of did growing up in grade 10 of school. I was I want to do portraits. This is my thing. What was your connection with portraiture?
I think that I've always been interested in faces. Even as a child, I loved drawing people. I think in my honors year, it was a portrait-focused exhibition, but I explored other things in the earlier years. I've just always been drawn to people and faces. I think that people are the most interesting subject.
And I know a big part of your body of work are the body portraits.
Yes.
Did you kind of explore that in university?
No, that came much later. That actually came about with my entry for the 2015 Portrait Award.
Yes, when I was going through your Instagram, there was just this huge explosion from what I noticed to be kind of very whimsical, delicate, playful watercolors. And then all of a sudden you had these, the whole body of work shifted. Was the kind of affirmation of being a finalist, and then you also won the Reader's Choice for the House and Garden for that piece. Was that kind of gave you the motivation to pursue that body of work?
Absolutely. I think that the positive response from people, really, it was very encouraging. I didn't know that people would receive it so well. And when they did, and when, people would send me messages just saying how much it meant to them to see bodies like their own represented, how important and valuable that was, I realized that there was something that, that could be really special.
And also, I guess, what I find with many artists that I know, when they kind of make the work a bit more personal, there's definitely a lot more impact. And I think even artists looking at other artwork, you kind of pick that up a lot more. Was that kind of the first time you put yourself or your partner? It
was my partner at the time, yes.
In quite a vulnerable position?
Yes, it was. And it was a very scary thing to do. But yeah, as I said, once people responded so positively, I realized that it was something that could have impact. And that it was important.
And so that time before 2015, so after graduating, you went to work in Joburg.
No, actually, I abandoned art, so that was the later betrayal.
Right.
I left art completely. I got my teaching qualification and I taught for 3 years in Taiwan.
Okay.
And then only came back to South Africa and got a job at a gallery there. And very kind of gradually worked my way back to painting again myself. But there was about 5 years that I didn't make any art at all.
And then why the decision to go back into the art world?
I always knew I would. I just needed some distance.
All right. I think that's kind of healthy. And I think also, I just find there's a lot of expectation from a young artist. And I think that kind of, that time learning about oneself definitely kind of helps. Especially the kind of expectations of what art should be or could be.
Yeah.
And then, and Cape Town, what was the motivation to move down to Cape Town?
My brother and my best friend lived here, and I think that I always wanted to live in Cape Town, but I got this job in Joburg, and I thought that it might be a good experience, but ultimately I knew I was always going to move here.
And what year was that?
It would have been at the beginning of 2014 I moved.
Okay.
End of 2013.
All right. So not too long before the 2015 show. And then after those accolades, did you find you had galleries approaching you or what?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, I have fostered some relationships with one or two galleries, but I'm not represented, and I didn't really feel like there was much attention in that way. I still don't understand fully how all of that works.
In my mind, I thought I was like the superstar and everyone wanted me and I'm the hardest thing around. But I guess you do have to kind of take advantage of it and just work with it. I mean, I just punted, I branded myself with that accolade for quite a while. And again,
I probably could have done more with it. But I don't think I'm the most competitive person.
Sure.
And so it's not really in my nature, but also life just took a different course,
But I think the big benefit maybe was just kind of knowing that that series of work was successful and to pursue it. I kind of had the same thing with my stamping technique. For a long time I put it away because I had a hard time with it at university. I had that accolade, been in the SPI in 2013, and I thought, okay, let me pursue it, and then it's treated me quite well. Also, upon doing research, I see you worked at Warren Editions.
Yes.
Was that, did you feel you just needed to kind of explore new mediums?
Yes. A friend of mine paid for me to do a monotype workshop there at Warren Editions, and I'd never really explored printmaking before. And I kind of just fell in love with the technical process of it and, using the presses, and it's a very methodical way of working. And I got on very well with Jeanne Warren, and I then did an internship there, and after that I think I did a 3-month internship, and after that it kind of fell into me getting a job, which was wonderful. I mean, I learned a lot about printmaking, and it definitely expanded my practice.
No, for sure. And I think there was kind of a correlation between your body portrait series at the time, and you kind of had a mixture between the abstraction and then the more naturalistic versions,
and that came about through printmaking and what was possible in that medium or those mediums.
Yeah, because then delving into it, I see you also work with abstraction and abstract works.
Yes.
And looking at
Starting
them,
to.
well, they're so good. The works at the Cubicle for the
Yes,
Circus
yes,
show.
the Cubicle series.
I think they're just very successful, and they're very...
Thank you.
Yeah, and they're very honest. And I mean, abstraction, I've tried dabbling in it, and it's really hard. I think there's just like nowhere to hide. You have to be... the strategy behind it is a lot different. And yeah, it feels like it's quite a learned thing, or did it just come quite naturally?
I mean, it's certainly the first time I've ever really moved into abstraction, but they're also probably the most personal works I've ever made. And I was using art for the first time consciously as a way to process my own emotions. And I had no idea when I began what the outcome would be. I just kind of sat with it and like processed. Yeah, I don't really know. There was no planning or like a vision of what I was going to make. I just did what kind of came.
And you think that's where the kind of success of them stems from?
I think
making
so.
them personal?
I think so. I mean, I also, again, I had no idea how that work was going to be received, especially after having made such vastly different work with the portraits. But again, people responded really positively, and it was a scarier thing to put out there because it was so personal. But I guess abstraction also, in another way, protects you because it can be read in a number of ways.
Sure.
Yeah. But I mean, it's something I definitely want to pursue further.
And I mean, in terms of accessibility, I know they are quite personal, but do you find that there's a broader audience, and maybe
I think so.
It's a lot more, say, palatable, I guess?
Yes. I mean, to be honest, like, portraits don't sell. Not really, unless you're commissioned to do a portrait of somebody, specific. And I don't expect my portraits to sell, and that's not why I make them. But I think the abstract work is accessible to a wider audience. People respond to it. It's not a stranger's face or body that they're going to be hanging in their house. It's something that, involves color and patterns and texture and a whole number of other things.
But do you not find, I mean, going back to, so this kind of focus a bit on the 2017 SPI portrait winning, and then also the body portrait series, there's kind of a balance between portraiture and then maybe political or social statement.
Sure.
Doesn't that kind of marriage elevate it beyond portrait?
It does. I think it does. But it's still not the kind of work that's going to sell.
All right,
I think it's valuable. It has a valuable social message. And in terms of making certain people visible, I think that's, what's important about it. But it's not... It's still not work that people are going to put on their walls.
Sure. But ultimately, I guess in a way, it almost feeds the other work you do and kind of gives
perhaps.
it weight and value.
I hope so.
So with the 2017 SPI winning, I mean, that's a huge accolade. And I mean, congratulations.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you.
And also coming in second. I mean, crazy. You must have had so many artists hating on you.
Yeah, I think I did, actually. And funnily enough, the winning work, I almost didn't enter.
Okay.
It was a work that I'd been laboring over for about a year and a half. I really, really struggled with that piece. Whereas the other work that came second, that was the one that was destined.
Yes.
That was the one I was going to enter into the competition, and that was the one I was happy with. But then when the due date came around, I had these two works. Wasn't quite sure about the one that won. But I thought, well, I have it, so I may as well enter it, because I think you could enter two.
Yes.
So when they phoned me to say that my work had been selected, I said, oh, which one? And they said, no, both.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So then on the night of the actual award ceremony, when they called up the top 5, they called me up as second place. And I thought, I just missed it, And I went up there, and that was for Kwena. And then they said, well, and the winner of the 2017 is already on stage. And they said it was me.
Amazing.
And I was shocked. I was really, really shocked. I didn't think that work would even be selected, let alone win.
Sure. And I mean, you also just said, what I've read up is that most of the response from the public has been positive.
Yes, it has.
And were you expecting more pushback?
I mean, look, there was pushback. There were a lot of people who were really, really nasty, especially online.
Sure.
I think when you can hide behind, a screen.
Yeah, totally.
People who said it was disgusting, who said it wasn't art, who said, that I should be disqualified. People were trying to find ways to attack me, but for the most part, the resounding opinion was that it was valuable and people were really praising the work.
But even that negative feedback, did you kind of wear that as a trophy?
It was hard at first. I also felt responsible for the two people who I painted.
Sure.
They're friends of mine. And it's such a vulnerable and exposing position to put them in, and then for the work to receive that kind of vitriol. I kind of, I felt responsible for them, but I think they were more positive about it. They didn't care. They saw it as just people being petty and small-minded. Ultimately I was able to withstand the negative comments and was stronger for it, I think.
No, for sure. I mean, I also heard some feedback saying it's more of a political statement than a portrait. But for me, all my mind jumped to was one of my favorite portraits, David's Death of Marat. And how
which is entirely political.
Yeah, and it transcends both. And I think in terms of portraiture, instead of just being a face, it's it can be a vessel for so many things. I think it totally deserved to win.
Thank you.
Every year, every award, there's always, pushback.
Yes.
And I think people are just a bit,
it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Totally. I remember I kind of came second. Well, I came second in an art competition once, but I was intending to be controversial. The theme, it was for an NGO at the KZNSA.
Okay.
Where you did, some workshops and some talks.
Yes.
And in the beginning of each year, they have the members show, and the theme was Bold and the Beautiful.
Okay.
And I knew everyone was going to paint like swans and ballerinas, and I just thought, I got a toilet seat, and then I got an oval canvas, and then I kind of framed it in the toilet seat, and then made a turd within the bowl. And it came second place, and I mean, I wasn't expecting it, but I think the judges were oh God, not another swan. This is great.
Yes.
And I wasn't expecting the hate to come my way. But
I'm sure.
The comment book, it was 5 pages dedicated to that painting. But again, I just photographed it. I loved it. I wore it as a kind of badge of honor. And then with the traveling show, I know you stopped at KZN?
Yes.
And did you also stop in Gauteng? Or?
No, just KZN. They invited me specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, that was on them. It was their invitation.
And then from the 2015 kind of accolade and galleries chasing you down, 2017, was there a difference there? Was there a bit more response from galleries or institutions?
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, not really. I think that it certainly elevated my profile. And there were, I was invited to submit a work for the Everard Reed had a end of year portraiture and people or something. I can't remember the title, but it was a portrait focused exhibition. They asked me to, and I'm sure that had to do with the winning of the award. But no, not really. Other than that.
And then there's also a mammoth task, I think, that's put on the artist's shoulders in terms of making a solo show based on the one painting. And I think it's quite a hard ask coming from a portrait's perspective. I think your show, I would say, been the most successful. And I think at least, again, I think there's a lot more context to the body of work, especially the body portraits, and maybe it translates better into a body of work. I mean, I think the last 2 shows really struggled with that.
Yeah, I saw the one before, but I didn't see the first year's show, the winning one.
And I think also your show was put into one room. I know in the past it's always been
really?
over 2
I didn't realize
spaces.
that. Okay.
And I think it just, it worked, I think, as an intimate space. And the kind of the work flowed very nicely. I think the pressure of filling that whole space was just gigantic.
I mean, I was concerned that I didn't have enough work because between winning and 2 years later having the solo, a lot happened, and I wasn't able to dedicate like the time that I had hoped I would into making that solo show. But I realized when I installed that if I'd had any more works, that actually it would have started to feel cramped, and them being in one room and the sizes, and it just fitted really nicely.
For sure. And I think, again, with the models, the kind of the sense of vulnerability, if they were too crowded, maybe it would almost look like not a mob, but
yes.
You kind of...
A little army.
A little army. You're talking about, feeling a sense of responsibility for Jenna and Felix.
Yes.
And I read that every portrait from the body series starts off with a conversation.
Yes.
And all your models identify in some way as queer, correct?
Correct.
And that's very important.
Yes. Yes.
And in terms of the conversation, instead of, because I know you don't paint from life, you work from photographs.
Yes.
In a way, is that kind of getting that same connection?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think when you kind of paint from life and you have your sitter there, there's a certain connection and vulnerability and process you go with each other until the final images kind of emerges. And, working from photo, there's kind of a disconnect there.
There is, but I think the way that I work, I would never be able to paint my models in like one sitting or in, it would... I can do one photo shoot with them, and I normally, select images that I think are strong, and I send them to my models, and then they tell me what they like, and we kind of even elements. A lot of them are not just straightforward photographs. We choose. I really like your face in this one, but I like the way your hand is doing that in this. So it's actually a combination of different parts of different photos. So it's not like it's just a straight photo. And even though, yes, there is a distance, there's an intimacy when you paint somebody in real life, for sure. But that's not practical.
Sure.
It wasn't practical in the way that I paint. But there was definitely still an exchange and a shared kind of coming together of ideas around which images and which parts of images we would use.
No, for sure. I think there's a lot of trust bestowed on you.
Yes, definitely.
How do you kind of handle that responsibility?
I always maintain contact, and even before I put the works out to be shown, all of my sitters have seen the work at various stages of its to completion. And they know there's an agreement that if at any stage they want to no longer be part of the project, they can say so, and I won't show that work. I'll either stop or I just won't hang it. Luckily, that hasn't happened yet. People have, after, say, the photo shoot, have decided, no, actually, this is too exposing, and then I don't use their images. But yeah, it's a constant conversation, and where consent is renewed. Yeah.
No, because they can also, I know you say it's not a commercial real venture, but there is a bit of commercialism within it, like the works obviously can go for sale, no?
Yes.
Is there do you feel any time certain that's a bit of a speed hump you deal with, or like how do you, I mean, if there's a kind of a commercial aspect to it, that there's a certain way of commodifying that identity, and is there any sticky points there for you?
I haven't really considered that. No, I don't know I think that like anyone who I've painted would be quite delighted at the thought of like their image being like sold. Oh, that sounds so terrible, but you know what I mean?
No,
like
I mean, personally, I don't see a problem there.
No,
I just can
I don't
imagine
think
there
so.
might be like, I don't know if it's crossed the mind but I think, in terms of the sitter, I do think there's a sense of accolade. Everyone loves being painted. And again, I think they also feel not a sense of responsibility, but it's nice for them to also kind of enter that space regardless of identity.
And I think that you know, a lot of the people that I paint, oil paintings and portraits have like a long history of being quite grand and lofty, and you know, it's quite an honor to have your portrait painted. And I think a lot of the people that I choose to paint would never have thought that somebody like them would have like a grand oil painting portrait. And so there's kind of like there's that aspect to it where it feels like an honor.
No, for sure. And where do you see the body of work growing?
I want to have a little. Initially I envisioned this entire army of these portraits, but personally, I'm starting to veer in a different direction. And even though I think I will always be interested in bodies and portraiture, I can feel myself kind of moving in different directions now. And I'd like, now that this kind of Sanlam thing is over, like my part of the journey, somebody else is going to be announced, and the attention will be over there. And I feel like I might give portraits a little bit of a break. For
sure. I guess, your solo show at Rustenfried was always like a nice culmination of that series of work and a nice way to...
I wanted it to be bigger, but it wasn't.
Sure.
But I'm happy. I was very happy with what I produced and very proud of what I was able to do. But I think it's time to move on to some other things.
No, I think that's great. I see also you recently did a Paris exchange.
Yes.
I loved your strategy in terms of funding it. You basically kind of like a GoFundMe where you offered pricing tiers.
Yes.
And then depending on how much people paid or donated, or you would kind of compensate them with an artwork.
Yes.
In various sizes. Was that, do you get a good response from that?
A really, really good response. Also an unexpected thing. I don't know if you've ever read Amanda Palmer's book, The Art of Asking. It's really, really good. She's amazing. But that's, you know, her success has been built on the relationship that she has with the people who listen and buy her music. And I didn't know how I was going to, because the residency wasn't fully funded. And I was chatting to my best friend, and it's kind of, well, what would Amanda Palmer do? And
You're get a bracelet.
Yeah.
What would Amanda Palmer do? And I mean, it's kind of a thing of making yourself a bit vulnerable. It doesn't, I mean, personally, it doesn't come off as charity. I think like it just seems very industrious and professional in many ways. And I think if you look at a lot of young artists in different genres, music, film, YouTube, you know, Patreons, and all those things. That's almost the norm now.
Yeah, and I think that it's the most authentic way. It's the relationship between an artist and their viewers, listeners, you know, the people who. Yeah, that's who it's for, and it was such a revelation to me to see how much support I actually have.
Yes.
And that I do have a community that I can turn to and ask, you know, in exchange. Like, this is an exchange. Like, it's not about me just doing my thing. You know, there's an opportunity for people to share in the experience.
And I think also, for a big part of the audience, I think people want to get involved in art, or they want to buy art, and then I think they don't know how, or they're just kind of scared in terms of the approach.
Can be intimidating, yeah.
So I think if someone says like, yeah, this is a great option, and it's very easy to kind of do. I think, people will definitely jump onto that.
Yeah.
And then, so what came out of the Paris experience?
That was, so I only spent 2 weeks in Paris, but I was in France for 2 months. And the first part of that residency was in the south, and that it was a drawing focused residency, which was great because I really love drawing, but I don't do it enough. And so it was wonderful to kind of reconnect with those materials. And like I used like oil pastels. Like I haven't used that since I was in high school, and just re-familiarize myself with old drawing like mediums. And it was challenging, but ultimately like really, really rewarding. And there was wonderful like personal like development that happened there, and I felt shifts happening in my work, and I'm looking forward to pursuing those now that I'm back. I'm settling back into a bit of Cape Town life and routine. To remember that drawing is so easy. Do you know what I mean? You just need paper and a something to draw with, and it does. Whereas oil painting requires very real commitment and it's like a long-term thing. You can do like 10 sketches in a day, and they don't all have to be finished artworks. Drawing is more flexible like that. And
I mean, coming back and getting reorientated with Cape Town life, you kind of came back and your studio was gone, no?
My studio was gone, yes.
Because Untitled got reclaimed back by the city. Was that when you came back? Did you know about the situation?
I got the email when I was in France.
Okay.
So there was a little bit of panic, but actually a friend of mine, he wasn't aware that this had happened, and he recently bought a house in the Boerkaap, but it's standing empty for about a year.
Okay.
And he phoned me and said, hey, just a thought, if you want to use a room in my house in the Boerkaap as a studio, you're most welcome to. So I didn't even have to really look.
It almost sounds like an upgrade now of studio space. So that's where you're working and practicing now.
Yeah, that's where I'm working now.
Anyway, our time's running out, but thank you so much, Kate, for chatting. And I wish you all the best, and definitely will keep following you. Is there a website or anything people can follow you on?
Yeah, I think Instagram's probably best. I do have a website, which is just katearthur.com, but my Instagram is katearthurartist, and that's where I'm definitely more active.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best. ArtPod is a South African-focused visual arts podcast hosted by Claude Chandler and produced by the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts, brought to you by Blended Audio.